Here we are.
Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. And boy, do we have some interesting things to talk about tonight with my Illinois Circuit 19 case. So we want to get started with that, Pete?
Sure.
So explain what kind of happened.
Turn the sound off on your phone because I'm hearing it.
It is off.
Sorry, that was my phone actually causing the problem.
Still working out the kinks.
Still learning.
All right, so as everyone is aware, they were legit gatekeeping the open court system in Illinois Circuit 19. So you can go to their website and you can get the Zoom information for every single day for every single judge. So anybody can join. You just go to the website, the information's right there. Mm-hmm. There's no secret. This Judge Jacqueline Melius, and her clerk are gatekeeping my court watchers across the nation and across the globe. They are actually asking every single person that is attempting to join the Zoom, who are you here for? And the moment these people say Heather Bendl or 20F422, they are booted right out of the Zoom. And I had quite a few people multiple times trying to get back in and saying different things.
They're not even really in the Zoom. They're in a waiting room that they're getting kicked out of.
Right, they're in the waiting room, and they can't even get into the actual Zoom to watch the hearing.
And what the judge is saying, she's saying that her physical courtroom is open to the public, but she's not required to let the general public access or view the Zoom, which, you know...
This is the exact same thing Judge Sanders C. Upchurch at the Daytona Courthouse is doing to me as well. I have in an actual court record now from the January 8th where she would not allow my actual subpoenaed therapist with Chrysalis Health here in Florida to come in and testify to what she is witnessing is happening with my children. She actually put in DCF reports and actually called the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. And Upchurch would not allow her to come in and testify as a licensed therapist. And then she said, oh, she can come in person. Yeah. Oh, you want court watchers? They can come in person.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a tactic these family court judges are doing to all of us.
Even though the courtrooms are fully set up to be able to record, hold Zoom hearings, you know, and the judges do Zoom hearings, but they will, for family court, they refuse to record the meetings or the hearings. They refuse to allow the public to view the Zooms. And the only way to get an official record for a lot of these proceedings is for the parties involved to pay ridiculous fees to private court reporting companies.
There's the RICO.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, it's a big circle forcing everyone to pay out the ass for all these services just to have any sort of justice.
And the interesting thing here in Daytona, the one primary company that, you know, when Heather requests CART services, the court reporter that they send over from Esquire Services, that company refuses to work with any pro se litigants.
Yep.
So if you have an attorney, they'll allow themselves to be hired out for an attorney, but they refuse to work for pro se litigants. If you don't believe me, I've got the email to prove that when we tried to look into that. So
yeah, you know, so let's talk about what happened today. So leading up to today, what happened in the last court hearing? What did you witness?
So
from your own words?
From, you know, observing the first court hearing, the judge, you know, first thing it's an open call, meaning they have, you know, a bunch of cases from their docket. The attorneys are just checking in and sort of running through that. Now, they seem to be getting called in just a random order. So there's really no rhyme or reason to how the judge would seem to be calling cases in the first hearing. Once she called your case in the first hearing and you tried to explain, you know, what you were there for, she immediately had sort of cut you off and said, you know, she's passing the case to the end of the call.
Yeah, so this was the August 12th Zoom hearing with Illinois Circuit 19, Judge Melius.
We were half expecting a very similar thing to happen today, if not for her to just fully hold off and call you the very last person. So it was actually, I think, caught us a little off guard when they actually called you, and there were still a ton of other attorneys on the call. One of the attorneys was a familiar name, and
Mr. Dennis Gravel of Gurnee, Illinois.
So, one thing here I'll say is, obviously we were not recording video of the hearing, but had I, had a camera on Heather, the moment that name was called, her physical demeanor changed instantly.
And why is that?
Because he was your original divorce attorney
that I hired,
and he was the attorney that you
rehired June of 2020.
Modify your child custody agreement to add Charlie, who was born after your divorce.
Right.
And he's the attorney
he created the 20F422. So my original case with him was 13D981. And then June of 2020, when I hired him a second time to modify that 2013 parental agreement to not only add my youngest son, Charles Serlick, but also modify the child support because Justin was choosing to move from Lake County, Illinois to Volusia County, Florida. And in our divorce, it actually states if one of the parents, which in his case, he was a non-custodial parent, I had full custody of my children. Non-custodial parent moves more than 100 miles away, they pay an additional in child support. So this all stems from me hiring Dennis Gravel of Gurnee, Illinois, along with his other attorney, Charles, creating this new case, 20F422. Our very first hearing was September 15th of 2020. September 14th of 2020, Justin hires the law firm that followed the entire case and is now right back in my case.
And so on September 15th for the hearing, Justin's retained attorney gets on the Zoom with the judge, or was it in person at the time? That was just before COVID.
Oh, no, that was 2020 and 2021 was all Zoom. And, and here's the thing. These judges are using them to abuse things.
Justin's attorney gets on and says, Your Honor, we were just retained yesterday. We're not ready for anything today. So basically it got put on a continuance and delayed. It
continued to October 30th, 2020. What happened right before that?
So on October 8th, almost as if it was planned, Illinois DCF showed up in your life and
poof, my children disappeared.
Basically kidnapped your kids out of your life.
At the daycare, Kitty Cottage Daycare in Fox Lake, Illinois. They just show up at 4 p.m., take my children, and I'm standing in the parking lot completely dumbfounded.
Yeah, and when you actually read through the various reports that you've been able to gain access to, their primary reason for it was based pretty much solely on allegations told to them by Justin
and Mary Serlick.
So
the whole thing was planned from the very beginning. Yeah. I am convinced the time that Justin flew back down to Florida from pretty much it would have been mid-April of 2020 to just after Father's Day in June 2020. I'm convinced that's when Justin, Mary, and Ira Serlick were working out their little game plan, trying to figure out how to connect everything and make it work the way they wanted to. Yeah. Because this all boils down to I and the children did not want to leave everything we'd ever known in Chicagoland to move to Daytona, Florida.
Okay. So to bring everybody up
Dennis
to speed.
Gravel is in my face today, and he's the cause of all the beginning of this. He was my attorney on record when this happened.
And then the important thing to note is as soon as Illinois DCF got involved, what did Dennis tell you?
Now I'm drawing blank. That's unfortunate, as I'm crying hysterically on the phone with him. That's unfortunate. I don't handle those types of cases. I will email you my best friend who does in Barrington, Illinois. Thus enters Thomas Hunter and Orrin Grappe of Barrington, Illinois.
So I'm sure a lot of people who are familiar with the family court system can understand. Basically, you have a mother who is completely distraught, being told, here's your only option. And that's sort of how everything started. Now, to bring everything forward to actual today, you know, the reason, and I know we've said it on the podcast before, but the reason you are back in court in Illinois, even though everybody lives in Florida, is because that Illinois Circuit 19 was the original tribunal court that issued the original order that basically Justin and his family have been running around to use as a means to tell the world that you lost all your parental rights. And that's not what that order really says at all. Nope. You know, there's both Illinois and Florida. There are specific statutory rules and procedures to terminate a parent's rights.
TPR.
There's specific hearings that have to be held. None of that happened in either state for Heather.
Nope.
So I want to be super clear on that to not confuse anybody. There was never any formal parental rights termination hearings.
Nothing.
This was...
They kidnapped my children from their daycare. They child trafficked them in Illinois and then spat them out in Daytona, Florida, all because of GAL, Kathleen McGee, that signed over my children like pieces of property to Justin Serlick and shipped like pieces of property my children down to Daytona.
So,
and here we are. Because
Illinois Circuit 19 issued that order, the only legal process to get it 100% fully vacated, which, you know, has taken a while for us to really parse out the law and understand it. And it honestly, it wasn't until January or February this past year
UCC?
where we even started. Oh, it's even later.
We learned about UCCJEA from a woman that does
everything has been kind
work.
of a blur. So basically, once we sort of realized, you know, the statutory rules and procedures for both states were not followed, Heather started raising those legal arguments in her cases. And ultimately, it has culminated with Heather filing a petition for relief and vacature in Illinois Circuit 19. Because they're the original tribunal, they do retain limited jurisdiction to be able to vacate the order that they issued. And they do not have jurisdiction to amend or modify or impose new sanctions.
What is the one and only reason attorney Will Traberis of the original law firm that signed this 3-page order, what is his only reason for why we shouldn't go forward?
Oh, yeah. So they're claiming that Illinois doesn't have jurisdiction, which is ironic because that's the same argument Heather
they
has
didn't have
been trying to
jurisdiction
make.
As of February 2020.
You know,
2022.
In his motion to dismiss, he actually cited, you know, he listed out the facts and circumstances, which for the most part, we completely agree with. You know, he basically said nobody has been in Illinois since, you know, when Heather converted her driver's license in February. The kids were in Florida long before that. Justin was in Florida before that.
Mm-hmm. And then I followed the children down here just not even 3 months after they were shipped like boxes down here. I followed them down in my RV.
Yeah, we were a little dumbfounded reading the motion to dismiss when you start actually like looking at the timeline he's trying to present, and it literally coincides with the argument that Illinois did not have jurisdiction.
It's almost
over
like
the
they
3 youngest
know
kids
that what they're doing is illegal
on April of 2022. So that brings us. So there was the initial hearing a couple weeks ago that was set for more like this. Today was sort of a status update because in the first Zoom hearing in Illinois, Justin's attorney had told the judge he was planning on filing a motion to dismiss. Because he told the judge he was planning to file a motion to dismiss, in an effort to preempt that, Heather had prepared an initial response, but that response was also to get on the record some of the things that happened in the hearing from Heather's perspective.
Yeah. So
Heather had filed that, and then there was a deadline to file the
August 26th.
And that's when Justin's attorney had to file the motion to dismiss.
Is that motion in the 20F422 docket at all?
The answer to that would be no,
is the notice of appearance for Will Traveris to represent Justin Serlick in the 20F422 docket?
Surprisingly, the answer to that is also no.
Imagine that. They don't want anything on the record. Because when I turn around and appeal this crap, that means that their portion is not going to be in that case. They're trying to file it into my closed 13D981 for my original divorce.
Yeah. Now the judge's response to Heather on that fact today was, well, on the notice itself, it lists both cases.
That's great. Okay, it's not in the docket.
It's not in the docket. So,
and that's Illinois Supreme Court law.
The docket, no matter what state you're in, the court docket is the official record of the proceedings. So if something's not in the docket, it didn't happen. If you reopen this case in 10 years and there's no appearance in the docket, nobody is going to know, oh, well, you have to go back and look at this other case. Yeah. So whether this is Justin's attorney not knowing what he's doing, whether it's people at the clerk of the court trying to mess things up.
No, it's absolutely intentional not getting the things on the record, because how did the original 3-page order happen in the first place?
Oh, it was emailed over or sent by smoke signal or carrier pigeon or something. So
yeah, it's all off the record. Emails to Judge Lombardo from Illinois Circuit 19, and then it transitioned in 2022, January of 2022, to Marnie Slavin. So they were emailing the judges this stuff and not actually filing it into my docket. So it literally goes from I have full custody to all of a sudden the 3-page order in April 2022. And I have reserved rights.
With really no evidentiary hearings.
None.
That's like, I mean, you follow the docket. I think it was 30 documents total from start to finish in the 20F422 case. None of them are like, okay, we had a hearing and the court determined X, Y, Z. None of that. It was literally just continue. Oh, Heather's not here. Here, judge, sign this.
Exactly. Exactly. They were just waiting for the opportune moment to slide that 3-page order in. Make it so, and then they've been hiding my children from me since.
So with that being said, as far as today goes, obviously we're in a Zoom hearing again. The judge ultimately calls the case, starts with the divorce case when she first called it out. You, of course, say you're here. Justin's attorney says he's here. You immediately try to point out to the judge
again
a
second time
that
there's
even
no
today there's no notice of appearance. That sort of the judge sort of paused everything and tried to verify. Of course, they're scrambling on both ends. Oh yeah, it's filed in the other case. Both cases are listed on it.
It is so obvious these people are used to doing whatever the hell they want, and screw Illinois laws, screw U.S. constitutional laws. We're just going to do whatever we want and just hope that whoever we're hurting is too stupid to realize what we're doing.
So ultimately, they ended up still proceeding forward with the hearing today, where really the only thing there was 2 things accomplished today. The first is that a actual hearing date was set.
Yes.
About a month out.
Yes. Wednesday, October 8th at 9 a.m. via Zoom.
So
now, why is it via Zoom? That was interesting.
That was the other thing, right? So in the first hearing, the judge made it clear that all hearings, the parties must be present physically in her court. So, of course, when Heather brings up the fact that she's a public school teacher in Florida, obviously it's going to create all kinds of hardship, not just for Heather, but for her students, for her to take several days off to get up to Chicago.
Yeah, I'm a public school teacher teaching high school science to over 250 students that have had a substitute for 3 weeks. So of course I want to be there for them.
Justin's attorney, obviously he's local and can go physically to court, but the judge was requiring both Heather and Justin, because they're the parties. It doesn't matter that Justin has an attorney. The judge was initially requiring him to attend physically as well. Well, his attorney said, Your Honor, he lives in Daytona Beach, Florida, and he's caring for 3 kids, and he doesn't have the financial means to get up here.
Woe is me.
So, please grant him leave to attend by Zoom.
And then I very, very quickly said, okay, well, if we're going to do this, then I get the exact same treatment. I will be Zoom as well.
So, and the judge pretty much actually agreed with that. She said, you know what? I understand both sides are going to have, financial hardships. So, both of them will be via Zoom. So that was sort of essentially, it was a win in our category, right? I mean, if push came to shove, we would have gotten Heather to Chicago.
Yeah.
But
I'm homesick. I would love to go to Dungeon of Doom in Lake County.
There's a number of, I think, overall kind of benefits from you being able to have a hearing via Zoom.
Yeah, I'm not in the close proximity to my abuser and rapist.
So
imagine that.
So then that pretty much ended the hearing today, but a couple things that I know Heather wants to make sure we acknowledge. So Heather did post on Facebook requesting anybody who could to try to log into the Zoom to be able to court watch and observe what happened. We know with the way the court has been, they're not letting anybody who's not a party to the case actually join via Zoom. So we know, because Heather was getting messages for people that were trying to log in on Zoom. We greatly appreciate
in
it.
Real time, yes. Thank you to
even though they didn't let you in to observe,
you're seeing what's happening. It's not just happening to me. This is happening to a lot of us. Dave Weigel said, when I described what has been happening to me in Illinois Circuit 19, he's like, no, that is identical to what was happening to me in New York. So this is happening all over the nation. So it's
something like, here's the important thing to realize. Even though you guys were not let into the Zoom hearing today, that doesn't mean don't try on the next hearing.
Exactly.
If you have, not even just Heather, but if other folks have Zoom hearings and they're asking for court watchers, still try to get on. If you're not able to get on and observe, document that fact, do a screen capture showing that you're in the waiting room and they're not letting you in. Send that to the person whose hearing it is, just so they can have that documentation. You never know when it might actually be important and come up down the road in different appeals. When you're claiming various due process violations and other issues with the court. So again, we greatly appreciate everybody that tried to get on.
And it's not only a benefit to the person you're watching, but it's, as an educator, I have to continue to educate everyone on what's happening here. By court watching other people's hearings and seeing what's happening, not only does it allow you to have further knowledge of what's happening, but it gives you a reality check that I needed for years before this. Yeah. I didn't have a reality check until October of 2024, and this has been happening since October of 2020.
And listen, the worst case scenario, if they do let you into the Zoom and you're able to observe it, great. You're able to actually observe some court hearings. If you're in your own, family court mess, you may actually pick up some knowledge from being able to observe these court hearings. The reality is that's what law students do. Mm-hmm. They'll go sit at court and observe, and that's how they learn to actually represent in court.
Watch
the movie My Cousin Vinny. He explains it in that. He was going to Brooklyn, College of Law at night school and, observing courts, during the day. So if you have the opportunity to court watch via Zoom and they let you in, great. If you have the opportunity to go physically to a court and sit in the courtroom and observe it, great. Do that. Support your friends. Unfortunately, as we found out last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? No, yeah, 2 weeks ago.
August 12th.
You can go physically into a courthouse, which is supposed to be open to the public. Florida law, it's open records, and you can still be denied entry to the actual courtroom. So don't get discouraged. Just continue to document and share and report and help your fellow court victims.
Yeah, and the Seminole County, Florida Circuit 18 in-person court watching hearing that he's referring to, that he and I both went to, was to support Crystal Kolpak. She's been a friend of mine for over a year here in Florida. She's been watching me go through this. She's been trying to court watch for me. She's going through a very similar situation here in Florida. Kind of scary how similar it is. But her and I can definitely relate to each other. I do want to go through the comments because I know last time we didn't. So, Nicole, this aligns with my case in, I'm going to let you say that because you're a New Yorker.
Onondaga County, New York.
There you go. I would have butchered that.
They're all Indian names.
The more I listen and educate, the more my heart breaks. This has been happening for far too long. You are so correct. And then keep thinking that positive mindset. Absolutely, we have to have a positive mindset. Glad for the non-scale victories. I need direct info to watch. I will try, but I need to be sure I add it to my calendar and at least try. So, great point, Nicole. That's why I do Facebook events. A lot of people might not know this, but when you go on your Facebook app in your phone, if you go into the event info, there is an option to add to calendar, and it will add to your Google Calendar or your Apple Calendar. And that's what I do for all of my Facebook events. I add it to my Google Calendar and boom, it's on my phone. I know not to schedule anything around it. I know it's coming up. So if you weren't already aware that you can do that in the Facebook event, that's absolutely a benefit to using the Facebook events. And then, ironically enough, see if Dave would make a court watch chat thread with a bunch of question marks and exclamation points. Pete, what did we talk to Dave about on Sunday?
So, yeah, we actually spoke to Dave on the phone, or I did, and, there was a couple things. One is obviously getting some sort of a court watching network established combination of train people on how to do it and what to expect, but also share when the hearings are and when the need is, and to be able to share the documenting of those hearings.
It's so incredibly important.
We had also talked with Dave about doing a forum kind of thing to allow those of us like myself who are supporters of victims of the family court system to share our stories. So Dave didn't know I was actually getting a podcast started on that very, very sort of topic.
Support isn't silent.
The Support Isn't Silent podcast. I know we've said the episodes are going to be coming soon, and they are.
It's been a crazy last 2 weeks with your family.
The reality is, so here's what happened. We've got all the equipment. We're ready to go. Life happens. Yeah. So a couple weeks ago, my mom had a medical emergency, had to go to the hospital. So that sort of took out that whole weekend. And then unfortunately, the following weekend, so last weekend, my aunt suffered a medical emergency and unfortunately passed away. So that was my Aunt Ann in Florida. Was my dad's sister. She was, I think, 85. But essentially she was, for the most part, fully independent, and then had the medical episode.
And how old is your mother?
And my mom is, she'll be 83 in December. So
it's been a rough, bumpy road the last few weeks.
Yeah. And then to throw, a little, extra on top of that, I'm changing offices for my job. So I still work for the same company, but I had an opportunity to take over an office and work on becoming the primary advisor in that office. So
and I'm so proud of you. You've got your own office now.
Actually,
so
today
awesome.
we moved in. So yesterday we packed up my old office and we dropped everything off today in the new office, and I spent some time getting some stuff unboxed. There's still a lot to do and get things set up and figure things out and try to memorize the new phone number. But it's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
A combination of some
great opportunities,
sad things happening and some really positive things happening. So it kind of evens out.
So anyways, it's been a busy day, but the podcast, important. It is happening. It will happen.
Gotta get loud, guys. Gotta get on as many podcasts as possible. That's why all of us are launching our own podcast. The more podcasts you're on, the more your story is all over the internet.
Yeah,
and
so
that's what we need.
What
gotta get loud.
I'm going to do is either later this week. Later this week, I'm going to reach out to some of the folks that have already filled out our interest form and see if I can actually get the interviews scheduled. So the way our process works is there's a form. Heather will repost it with this link, but it's also available on her Facebook feed. You fill out the form. It sort of gives us some basic information about your situation, who you are, whether you want to be on my podcast, Heather's podcast, or both. So as a reminder, Heather has the podcast where she's allowing other fellow victims to be able to share their stories.
Yep.
My podcast is for the partners of the victims to share their stories and how it's impacted their life. And that could be, spousal partner, boyfriends, fiancés. It could be parents. It could be grandparents. Brothers, sisters. It could be just
children. Children.
You could be a friend, that has been the shoulder to cry on for somebody going through this. So we want to hear your stories. We want to be able to share your stories. So that's sort of why we got the podcast going.
Yeah.
So stay
tuned.
And
then mine is called Disrupt the Corrupt, and we're going to disrupt these corrupt people. I am tired of this being underground and silent. It is time for we the people to get loud and bring awareness to this, raise awareness to this very dark and sinister underground network that family court is, and the RICO that is just absolute. There's no question about it. This is all one big massive RICO system. So with that being said, talking about getting loud.
So there's some they're not consequences, but there are things that seem to start happening as you start getting louder, telling your stories, and you start connecting with all these different groups and people that are related to the family court, fight. And a lot of these people we have found, and it's let me be clear that we're not talking about one person here. In the past 9 months, we have had so many different people reach out to Heather, some people to myself. They're telling you how you should be doing things, what you should be saying, what you need to be doing.
Not saying.
Which groups you need to connect with, which ones you need to focus on. Here, buy my book.
How about stay in your lane?
Yeah. So
stay in your lane.
So
unless you have a law degree, stay in your lane.
So just today, it happened again with Heather. She had posted a post after the hearing today, and some lady we don't even know who she is because
spoken to her before. I've had so many people connected to me.
The name, the Facebook profile name, is not a real legal name.
Nope.
It's shortened for something. But she reaches out. She sends Heather a message through Facebook Messenger, but it's a voice recorded message from somebody else.
It's forwarded to me.
So supposedly this is somebody who recorded a message about
me.
Something Heather posted, sent it to this other person for that person to send it to Heather. And, Heather's basic response at the end of this, and this lady then sent several, what was the longest one? 7 or 8 minutes?
7.5 minutes.
Voice messages. And at the end of it, Heather basically responds, look, it's clear you don't know anything about my case.
No.
So you really don't have any ground on to stand on to tell me what I should or shouldn't be doing. And
I just want to pause that. The irony of it is, in her voice clip, twice, she says, I've been dealing with this family court for 17 years. My children are all grown now. You've been dealing with it for 17 years. You're still in family court, supposedly with your children's grandparents. And it sounds like whatever you've been doing hasn't been working, because if you've been dealing with it for 17 years, you're doing something wrong, lady. Why don't you not tell me what to do when you're clearly doing something wrong?
Now, that being said, obviously, we've heard some crazy stories on some ridiculously extended proceedings, but it comes down to this. And I'm going to say this for everybody out there that listens to this. You may be genuine and have good intentions, But if you've been involved in family court, you have to know that on days that people have hearings, there's all kinds of emotions. There could be happy emotions, sad emotions, trauma responses, all kinds of stuff. That is not the day to chime in and say, oh, you should do this, or you should say this, or you shouldn't say this. Yeah. It's just not the right time. No. Everybody has to have a little bit more compassion out there.
Absolutely.
Now, along with that compassion, there has to be a little bit of common sense, right? So if you're going to try to tell somebody something about their case, you better have taken some time to learn about their case.
Yeah.
So in the messages that Heather got today, the very last line that the person said is, I don't know if you're a believer. Okay. It's very clear if you know Heather at all, or if you've been to my Facebook page. What did we just do last weekend?
We were welcomed into Trinity Church Deltona as new partners, which is more than just being a member of a church. It means that you are
actively participate.
You volunteer your time to help everyone in the church, and you're involved with the church, not just go once or twice a year and say you're a member. No, it's a huge community-based church. They're very involved with giving back to not only the community in Deltona, but Honduras. I mean, they are doing amazing things that, as someone who is a firm believer in community service, that's where I want to be. That's where I want to dedicate my time on Sundays. So for someone to say in a voice clip where they're telling me not to do something in regards to my case when they're not a paralegal or a attorney, and then make it very clear they don't know a single thing about me.
They
earned themselves blocked. Is what they did.
Before they sent the message, they couldn't take the 5 seconds to click on Heather's profile and skim through, because it would have been very obvious. Again, it really comes down to everybody needs to be a little bit more human.
Yes.
There are, unfortunately, with anything out there, where people are vulnerable, there are vultures, right? Yeah. So there are people that have a profit motive out there. Some of them are just trying to sell you a product, and that product may actually be helpful. Some of them are trying to sell a service that they're overcharging for. Some of them are trying to sell a service that you're not going to get what you're paying for.
Or,
and
some of them are going to be
at this point.
Rick Palco claims to live in Ohio. He was referred to me. We met with him, signed an agreement with him, gave him $500 to start my federal civil rights suit, and
he couldn't even get our names correct.
Nope. It was Pete Bendl and Heather Arnold, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know we were married yet.
So we obviously, we put an end to that real quick.
Yeah. But Rick Palco is not a good person. Be very, very careful with that person.
So, and there's other people out there, but we don't need to sit here and name names right now.
But I'm an educator, so I'm going to educate when people are harming others, when we're vulnerable.
Yeah.
So in regards to me saying, let's get loud, we've got another protest coming up.
And this is a national protest that's being organized by a lot of groups. There's been a lot of coordination on it.
Stand with Meg, Dave Weigel.
Last weekend, Dave Weigel spent like $18,000 of his own money to rent out an electronic billboard on the road that goes out to the Hamptons on Long Island, New York. This is, last weekend was Labor Day weekend. It was the last weekend of summer on Long Island. I grew up on Long Island. Believe me when I'm telling you, last was the last weekend of summer. The people who were going out to spend last weekend in the Hamptons were the
elites,
power players in the tri-state area, right? So we've heard, through a couple channels that Dave's phone was blowing up. People were not happy.
I would imagine
seeing them calling out family court, but it was actually the billboard itself featured Dave Weigel, Tanawah Downing, and Jessica Saxton.
Yeah. and they all look like they're ready to kick ass and take names. And I told them that it's a great photo. I think it's a great photo, and it's making a statement that we're done effing around. We mean business now.
And for people out there, I want to just sort of lay this out there too. Both Heather and I have met Tanawah Downing and Jessica Saxton in person in Orlando when they came through on their tour.
Yes.
We have both spoken on the phone directly with Dave Weigel. So, they're all serious about what they're doing. And I think, the sort of world hasn't had this, the world of family court survivors has not had this opportunity where you're getting a combination of technology, social media, combining at the same time
with some very pissed off parents
for to be able to have the ultimate benefit of actually potentially getting something done for the better, bringing some light onto this. Heather knows when I first met Heather, I was a complete novice, amateur, wouldn't ever think that the stuff that happens in family court happens. And then I have seen stuff with my own eyes. I have read reports. I have, been in court and seen how the judges, act toward, the victims and, when the victims are, representing themselves. And it's really a travesty. And the fact that the family court system as a whole, across the country, they can get away with things like not recording. So there's no official record.
Right.
When hearings are via Zoom, the judge can just mute. That was the other thing that happened today.
Non-stop muting me.
It was honestly
this
getting ridiculous.
This is how this started in the first place. They would permanently mute me.
Look, it was getting ridiculous. The judge would ask Heather a question like, Heather, what's your name?
Bendl.
And then the judge would hit the mute button so you can't hear Heather talking. And then she'd say, don't interrupt me. And Heather's like, I'm just trying to answer
you asked me a question. I'm trying to answer your question. You're interrupting. Mute.
So
it's absolutely insane. That is abuse. That is abuse of power. That is taking advantage of Zoom technology that should only have existed during the pandemic.
And here's the thing.
We're 5 years past the pandemic.
You have a hearing via Zoom. You're a court that's supposed to be doing things honorably and justly. Record it for record. Simple.
So speaking of recording, so we had the honor of meeting someone on Sunday at our church, and that is who?
So actually, when they were introducing some of the church board members when we were there for our partnership luncheon, they said the name. Oh, this is board member Webster Barnaby. That name rang a bell for me. So I quickly pull out my phone and type it up, realize Webster Barnaby is a Florida House representative for a House district in a state House district.
I think it's 29 because we're
Florida.
30.
So Heather actually, had the opportunity to talk with him for a bit. Once I hand my phone to Heather. I'm like, read this. And she's like, what is this? I'm like, the guy back there is a House representative.
Just behind me.
And Heather here actually, is a declared candidate for a Florida House seat in a different district. Campaign to start at some point when things aren't crazy, which I don't know if that'll ever happen.
The way I see it is, if it comes naturally, awesome. If not, I made a valid point by driving to Tallahassee.
Here's a really cool thing. So, a lot of people out there would, that he's an elected official, they'd be super intimidated. Once Heather found out who that was, she practically jumped up out of her seat.
No. I was observing him for a little bit because I wanted to see how much he had
actually come over to the table to introduce himself to all of the partners, and Heather stood up and stepped forward and shook his hand, and they were able to have a conversation. And Heather was, I thought I had those beeps turned off. So if you heard a beep, it was just a system sound. I actually did mute system sound, so I don't know why that popped up. But anyways, Heather did have a few minutes of his time and was able to sort of give a, quick, rundown that there's problems in the family court system that, she really needed to have a conversation with him about to see if he could do anything. And he was definitely in church mode. He was warm and welcoming, and he compassionate. He understood there was an issue that Heather was dealing with. He asked Heather to send his team a detailed email of what the problem is. But then here's the key: he also wanted to know what solutions were out there. Right?
Thank you, Mr. Barnaby, for actually saying that.
There's so many things that need to change with the family courts. Number one, record.
Required.
Not only should the courts have to record it, they should be barred from blocking people from recording the hearings on their phones. Right? It should just be anybody can record. It's a public hearing.
If you are following your canon oaths, if you are following your state constitutional rights and the country, the U.S. constitutional rights, there should be nothing to worry about.
And you're following the state statutes and the law.
There should be nothing to worry about.
In fact, you should want it to be recorded to prove that you're doing everything right.
Yep.
So
there's a reason they don't want it recorded.
The argument they try to make is, oh, well, these are family issues and you have to respect privacy. I'm going to be blunt here. Bullshit. If you're in family court, nobody has privacy. So record it and make it public record. That's number one change.
Number one. Yep.
Number two change, there definitely has to be some meaningful change to the Judicial Qualifications Committee and the bar organizations.
JQC, Florida Bar.
Bad attorneys and judges there needs to be a meaningful way to hold them accountable when they are acting in bad faith.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone on the victim side of things in family court would disagree with that. I would love to see a single person disagree with those 2 points. The people that are going to disagree are the people that are violating oaths and laws, and then you need to go.
So
bye.
So those are 2 big things. Obviously, there's more things out there, and that's something Heather's gonna be working up a detailed message to be able to send to him. And obviously, now that we know he's a member of our church, we expect to be able to speak to him again. And we're not gonna let this down. I tried. I really did.
We're still working out the technical kinks, everyone.
So we've got moving forward. So we sort of covered the hearing that we had today and brought everybody up to speed. I know in a lot of the prior ones, Heather's gone through all of her documents. We decided not to do that today because there was just a lot we wanted to cover. We're coming up on 48 minutes or so now.
Yeah, we're trying to keep these under an hour every time. People have no attention span anymore.
We brought everybody up to speed on the Illinois court. You did file a couple things in the Florida court. We'll get to that another time. We'll see what the judge does with any of that stuff. You've covered the protests. We've covered just warning in general for snakes in the grass.
Just to talk about it, the national protest is going to be in person and virtual. If you want information on the virtual, Stand with Meg, Family Court Fraud Warrior Project, Dave Weigel, the information's all there. I believe it should also be advertised all over Tanawah Downing and Jessica Saxton's Facebook and social media. Locally, I am the one organizing the Daytona, Florida protest here, and that's going to be on Sunday, September 7th. So if you are in the Daytona area and you've been harmed by the family courts local to Daytona area or Circuit 7, and you want these people to know that you are utilizing your First Amendment, your freedom of speech, by all means, come join us. We're also going to be at the Florida District 5 Court of Appeals, which is directly across the street from the Daytona Courthouse.
They're sort of catty corner to each other. And if you're in a neighboring county, you might be in a different court district, but you want to be able to get out and voice your concerns about family court, but you want there to be some friendly folks there, you're more than welcome to join us in Daytona. The courthouse in Daytona is on Orange Avenue.
And we're not going to be on the courthouse steps because you can't see it from the main road.
Tucked back, and there's some construction at the baseball field. So we'll be out on Orange Avenue.
Right before the Causeway Bridge.
Corner of Orange Avenue and Beach Street. There's a fire department, or no, that fire department's a little bit further north. Orange Avenue and
It's across the street from the Daytona Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, the courthouse is across from the Daytona Chamber, so it's easy enough to find. You put it into your GPS or your map app on your phone, and you'll find it.
And I did create a Facebook event for that, so you can add it to your calendar. Otherwise, if you can't do Sunday, Sunday's the only day I can do because I work Monday through Friday. But Monday and Tuesday as well. I'm just not doing those days. So if Sunday doesn't work, by all means, go out and do it during the work week so people can actually see it coming to and from the courthouse.
There is also an organized virtual, national protest that the way that's going to work is there's going to be a Zoom link, I believe, that is shared. So if you click on the link, Heather will share it on the page for this video. Click on that link, it'll get you the information for the national Zoom. They're going to be having people telling their own stories. They're going to have some other experts come on. I don't know if they're going to make a recording of it and make it publicly available, but you'll be able to, share that information out on your personal page to sort of just get the general idea that there's family court issues out there to a lot of people that may not even know some of this stuff's going on. I didn't know things were nearly this bad, before I saw things with my own eyes, trying to help Heather survive her own case.
Yeah, and then, we're definitely getting loud on social media, but think of all the people that are not on social media. I have a family member that is only on LinkedIn, and that's it. Does not do Facebook, does not do TikTok, any of that, X. So if they're not on those, and the mainstream media companies will not cover it because their shareholders are the judges and the attorneys, they're paying into these media companies to not expose what's happening. How else do we get that information to the people that are not online and they're more old-fashioned? Protests. That's how. We get out and we gather each other and we are there for each other and we protest. That's a lot of what our First Amendment is. We need to exercise it. So I think we pretty much covered everything we wanted to talk about tonight.
I think so. We're going to try to get some sleep. It was a really early morning, getting everything prepared this morning, and, moving my office and dealing with my dog and 2 cats. And so we're going to go relax a little bit tonight and wake up tomorrow and continue plugging along.
Yeah. Really appreciate everyone that's been there to support me. If you attempted to court watch, I truly appreciate you. We just need to keep doing this. I really would love to see the Family Court Fraud Warrior Project do a court watching group that's connected to it. What Dave talked to me about is absolutely of interest to me, and I think that we need to get serious about supporting each other across the nation with court watching. And the more we can show what they're doing, the more we can expose it. So if we don't see and witness what they're doing by not allowing us in or kicking us out or constantly muting us or permanently muting us, how can we expose it? We have to witness it in order to expose it. So that's where we need to be with this. We need to court watch as much as possible.
So again, thank you everybody that watched live. Thank you everybody that does watch the posted recording later on. We appreciate all of you, every single one of you. And we're telling Heather's story and my story to be able to give other folks the courage to tell their stories. And that's all I got.
And as you get courage to tell your story, you're going to influence others to tell their story. And it just keeps rolling. And that's how changes are made. That's how movements are built. So let's be the movement of our generation and let these people know that we're no longer going to allow them to destroy children's lives and our lives. We need to let them know that what they're doing is wrong. So I just want to say I really appreciate everyone and have a great rest of your night.